Welcome back to your ultimate pit stop, Piston Pundit. Over just a few months, tariffs were framed not merely as economic tools, but as levers powerful enough to reshape geopolitics, halt conflicts, and force compliance from entire regions. By mid-2025, the messaging was confident, almost triumphant. Yet as the year wound down and 2026 approached, that confidence began to crack. Three widely touted historic deals started unraveling simultaneously, while everyday Americans felt rising costs and slowing job momentum. For anyone following vehicles, manufacturing, and global supply chains, this story goes far beyond politics. Here are the developments. Tariffs as power plays. Why pressure starts breaking systems. Trump's tariff doctrine has always relied on two synchronized pistons. One drives domestic optics, tariffs as visible proof of strength, protectionism framed as loyalty to American labor, and pressure on companies to invest stateside. The second piston powers foreign policy, using tariffs as leverage to influence other nations on trade terms, borders, resources, and even security decisions. The mechanical problem is simple. Leverage only functions when compliance is cheaper than resistance. Many of the agreements promoted as victories were rushed, loosely defined, and built on pressure rather than durable alignment. That makes them structurally weak. Once media attention fades, internal politics, elections, and national pride take over. From an automotive standpoint, this fragility matters. Vehicles are not standalone products. They are global assemblies of engines, electronics, castings, and raw materials. When tariff policy becomes unpredictable, it disrupts sourcing strategies, inflates component costs, and complicates factory planning. The result isn't theoretical. It shows up in delayed launches, tighter margins, and higher prices at the dealership. And when that pressure leaves the negotiating table and collides with national pride, the resistance becomes impossible to ignore, starting in Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia pushes back. Tariffs meet national defiance. The first visible fracture emerged in Southeast Asia, where tariff pressure was positioned as a shortcut to easing tensions between Thailand and Cambodia. The pitch was straightforward: apply economic pressure, force cooperation, declare success. But ceasefires don't behave like trade documents. They're shaped by history, territorial claims, and domestic political incentives, factors that don't bend easily under outside threats. Thailand's response was telling. Officials publicly rejected the notion that tariffs could dictate security outcomes and criticized the idea of tying trade penalties to a border dispute. That stance played well domestically, where appearing to bow to external pressure carries political risk. Add election pressures, rising nationalism, and a military establishment that often commands public trust, and resistance becomes a strategic choice. For the auto industry, the stakes are real. Thailand is a critical manufacturing hub, often called the Detroit of Asia. Geopolitical tension combined with tariff uncertainty rattles logistics routes, supplier confidence, and currency stability. For automakers planning years ahead, that kind of volatility is far more damaging than any single tariff headline. Before we go further, do us a favor. Smash that like button and subscribe to Piston Pundit. It helps us reach more auto enthusiasts who care about how global politics actually hits the garage. Now, Thailand isn't alone in pushing back. When tariffs clash with sovereignty, Indonesia shows how fragile these deals can become. Indonesia's deal wobbles. Sovereignty collides with EV supply chains. The second unraveling centers on the US-Indonesia Framework Agreement that was promoted as a major trade breakthrough. Announced with fanfare, it promised reduced barriers for US goods in exchange for scaled-back tariff threats. But as 2025 closed, US officials accused Indonesia of backtracking, prompting last-minute talks to salvage the deal. The core issue was sovereignty, binding commitments that Jakarta viewed as overreach rather than partnership. When agreements are forged under tariff pressure, acceptance is often temporary. Governments may agree to blunt immediate economic pain, then renegotiate once political and market pressure eases. That's standard bargaining behavior, not betrayal. For automotive audiences, Indonesia's role is crucial. The country sits at the heart of the EV supply chain, particularly for nickel and battery materials. Negotiations touching export controls, local content rules, and industrial policy aren't just about tariffs. They're about who controls the future of electrified manufacturing. Uncertainty here directly affects investment timelines, sourcing decisions, and long-term vehicle pricing stability. And when trade instability spills into regions defined by conflict, the risks escalate far beyond contracts and commodities. Peace deals without teeth. Conflict spills into supply chains. The most sobering collapse came out of Central Africa, where a high-profile peace agreement tied to the Rwanda Democratic Republic of Congo conflict unraveled almost immediately. The deal was framed as a diplomatic breakthrough, yet violence quickly resumed, with reports of armed groups moving into strategic territory and both sides accusing each other of violations. The core issue was enforcement, or the lack of it. Agreements heavy on ceremony but light on consequences rarely hold when real power, land, and resources are at stake. From an automotive perspective, this region matters more than many realize. Eastern Congo sits at the center of global conversations around critical minerals used in batteries, electronics, and vehicle electrification. When instability spikes, risk premiums rise across the board. Financing becomes more expensive, insurance costs climb, and compliance with responsible sourcing standards grows more complex. Even automakers not directly sourcing from the region feel the impact through price volatility and supply anxiety. When peace deals fail fast, the shockwaves extend well beyond geopolitics. And eventually, those global shocks roll straight back to the home front, right into consumer wallets. Economic spin versus reality. Car buyers feel the squeeze. As overseas deals faltered, the message at home stayed aggressive. Trump insisted the economy was stronger than voters felt, while unveiling symbolic moves like the $1,776 Warrior dividend tied to America's 250th anniversary. But the broader economic data painted a more complicated picture. Inflation showed signs of re-acceleration after tariff shifts, hiring momentum cooled, and unemployment edged higher toward the end of 2025. For everyday Americans, the disconnect between messaging and lived experience became hard to ignore. In the auto world, this disconnect translates directly into affordability stress. When prices stay elevated and job growth slows, consumers delay major purchases. Monthly payments, not sticker prices, become the deciding factor. Tariffs on steel, electronics, and imported sub-assemblies squeeze manufacturers into tough choices: absorb costs, pressure suppliers, or pass increases to buyers. Some automakers absorbed those costs longer than expected, but margins aren't infinite. When confidence drops, the entire automotive ecosystem downshifts. Inventory planning, incentives, leasing, and production schedules all feel the hesitation. Which brings us to the final judgment, when rhetoric meets real-world mechanics. Verdict: when tariff hype fails the road test. At the end of the day, tariffs were sold as an all-purpose performance upgrade, a solution for trade deficits, geopolitical conflicts, job creation, and national leverage. But in real time, three widely promoted wins unraveled together, while domestic indicators flashed mixed signals. Anyone who understands cars knows the lesson here. Marketing can't override mechanics. You can't tune your way past physics, and you can't podium talk your way past supply chain reality. The auto industry thrives on predictability. Factories plan years ahead, suppliers lock contracts long-term, and buyers commit only when tomorrow feels stable. Aggressive tariff strategies may grab headlines, but volatility is the one thing the automotive world can't ignore. As we head deeper into 2026, the real question isn't whether tariffs generate attention, it's whether they survive the road test once the cameras are gone and the costs start showing up on balance sheets. Now we want to hear from you. Do tariffs actually strengthen the auto industry, or do they introduce more risk than reward? Should critical mineral supply chains be insulated from political pressure, or tightly controlled? How much does economic uncertainty affect your vehicle buying decisions? Drop your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If you want more breakdowns like this, make sure to subscribe to Piston Pundit so you don't miss our next vehicle updates and upcoming videos. Thanks for watching, and check out more videos on your screen. There's plenty more to explore.